Because we're everywhere, dun, 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 here is a handy guide on how to spot a trans guy. And then avoid, if you want to. Hey Spuds, how's it going? It's Jamie, welcome back to another video. I hope you're well, thank you for clicking on this video. That was a lot in a sentence. Of course, I'm not actually going to give out advice on how to spot and avoid trans guys, but instead I'm going to be reacting to a thread called How to Spot a FTM. Already grammatically incorrect. It's a painfully ill-informed, highly transphobic post with a not very nice, mostly not very nice thread that follows it. And the information just really isn't that useful if you actually want to avoid trans men. I mean, maybe you will successfully avoid a few, but you will also avoid a lot of cis men and not avoid a lot of trans men. Yeah. This post was on the subreddit called LGB Drop the T. Not surprised, it seems a very fitting place for this kind of post. I can't imagine many good posts actually show up in that subreddit. So, the original poster, the OP, started off by saying, and I will read this so that I do it like word for word. Since FTM pass better as men, they are harder to detect than the obvious dude in a wig. So how can gay men detect these straight women posing as dudes? Ouch. Oh, so much wrong in so little amount of words. Firstly, trans men are not men. Trans men are just men. No quotation marks needed. Secondly, that implication that trans women are just dudes in wigs, that's rude and wrong. Then there's the punchline of it's coming from the perspective of a gay man who does not want to accidentally end up dating somebody who he perceives as being a straight woman, i.e. gay trans men. Maybe all trans men, maybe he doesn't see variation of sexuality between trans men. I'm not sure, but certainly gay trans men, he does not want to end up dating them because he thinks they're women, but obviously needs some advice because they're difficult to spot as they look like men. Or, you know, like stereotypically like how you would expect a man to look in society, so therefore you need all this advice and tips and information on how to avoid them. Yeah. And after that they go on to explain and give some advice and tips of their own of what to look out for if you too want to avoid a trans man. Look for any scarring on arm. I'm sure they meant scarring. I mean, well, that one would not work for any trans man who has not had forearm phalloplasty, as in a majority. It would also mistakenly work for cis men who have had phalloplasty, which is really not that unlikely, seeing as the technique was literally designed for cis men who were born without a penis or with penis defects or lost their penises in an accident. It's a method that was designed for cis men, and cis men have phalloplasty sometimes. The next bit of advice we have is to look for tattoos on the forearms that could be covering any scarring. So basically anybody with a sleeve or half sleeve that covers the forearm area. This one is not even logical. So the steps that I think of when I think of this is look for scarring. Scarring may be covered with tattoos. Look for tattoos that may be covering scarring, but then you wouldn't be able to see any of the scarring because the tattoos that are designed to cover the scarring actually do a very good job of covering it and make it very difficult to not very possible to see. So therefore, to be on the safe side, just rule out anybody that has tattoos that cover their forearm. I mean, just the logic of that. Look for tattoos that cover scarring. The tattoos are designed to cover the scarring. How will you tell if they're just forearm tattoos or scar covering forearm tattoos? Then, lacking an Adam's apple. I guess I'm not trans then. Why didn't anyone tell me sooner? This bit made me laugh because I was literally used as an example on this thread as a trans guy with a visible Adam's apple. It really happens. The guy who made the post clearly doesn't realise that A, everybody has an Adam's apple, just some people's are more prominent than others, and B, it's testosterone that is most likely to make it more prominent. So I always had like one there, as everybody does, but taking testosterone made it more prominent, which is why people who have naturally high levels of testosterone in their bodies or who take testosterone are more likely to have an Adam's apple. But it's not like a rule that are obvious exceptions or exceptions to any rule. It's a very tricky thing to go, oh, if you don't have an Adam's apple, you might be a trans man. And then quite possibly the weirdest bit of advice here is to look for a bulge. Just go around staring at the crotch. Now, looking for a bulge in most circumstances is a very odd thing to do and will probably come across slightly creepy if you're just staring at it. Bit weird. Also pointless because a lot of trans guys wear something called a packer, which creates the appearance of a bulge. They then opened it up to the responses of other people reading this thread and asked, what else should we be looking for? What else is out there? Do you have any advice? And they also gave an explanation to why they were asking this. I was very interested in their reasoning behind this, and this is the reason they gave. You ready? I'm just wanting to be more aware since there are a lot of tea people in my area. Ideally, I'd like to avoid them, just because I'm unwilling to play their stupid game. I'm really curious about where they live, not because I want to see them or anything, not that they would avoid me because I don't fit in any of the criteria of spotting a trans man, but I'm really curious as to why they think they have a lot of trans people living in their area specifically. Like it's specifically urgent because there are a lot of trans people right here where I live and I don't know why. They want to avoid trans people because they don't want to play a stupid game. Do you know what game is stupid? Spot the scars, bulge and Adam's apple. There were a lot of replies offering advice, further tips, further weird advice on how to avoid trans men. There were too many to go through them all, but here are just some highlights for you guys. So one person said that we'll, as in trans men, we'll announce ourselves very quickly because we can't resist the attention. We need to seek the attention. Guess because trans people really do just like to put themselves in danger by walking into social situations and announcing that they're trans just for a bit of attention. Softer, rounder jawlines. For some reason that just made me think of a hamster. I don't know why, and now I'm thinking of a human with like a hamster type jaw, and that's not going to give away trans guy. This one is interesting. Their hair is probably soft and curly. My hair's too straight. I wish my hair was a bit curly. The person who said this also claimed that they'd never seen an FTM who did not have that curly beanie over the face swept hair. I can't remember exactly how they said it. It was something to do with curly, sweepy beanie hair. That's trans man hair, apparently. I mean, it's not. It's just because this person clearly assumes that anybody with that hair is trans and anybody without that hair is not. Or it's one of their factors. They probably play ukulele. Forget the current diagnostic criteria. Do you play ukulele? Yes, then you must be a trans guy. Look at their belongings. If they have a soft aesthetic, they are probably trans. But what the hell am I even reading now at this point? I give up. I give up. Then somebody else said, narrow shoulders sound like a prepubescent boy, small hands/feet, patchy facial hair. I literally have none of that, and so do many other trans guys. Do not have any of that, but a lot of cis guys do. A lot of trans guys do as well. There's not going to the gym, there's not having great beard genetics. There's loads of factors that would lead to all of those things happening for somebody. Facial hair that looks more like scalp hair in terms of texture and volume. What? Have I been missing out on having a really thick beard this whole time? If my facial hair was like my head hair, wow. I mean, it would be weird. I'm literally imagining my beard going like straight down, blonde highlights included, just like matching the top, maybe even with the sides cut short to match. So I'm confused. Are trans men meant to have like patchy facial hair or facial hair that's like their head hair and should therefore be soft and curly and over the face? Facial hair like scalp hair. There are a lot more than that, but I'm done. I'm done. And I just want to give a shout out to some of the amazing trans people and trans allies who found that thread and did some replies of their own. My personal favourite was the advice that if you want to avoid trans men, then wear a t-shirt that says trans men aren't men, and all the trans people and allies will become clear to you. This is great advice. Honestly, make it clear that you're transphobic and trans people will stay very clear from you. Also, FYI, I'm not saying that just like independently not wanting to date a trans person is transphobic. The thing I find transphobic about this post is thinking that you can imply that trans men aren't men and say that trans women are dudes in wigs and that gay trans men are just straight women. It's those types of things that are transphobic, not just somebody being like, I would rather not date a trans person. It's just, you don't have to announce it and be transphobic in the process of announcing it. There were also quite a lot of cis men in that thread saying that they have been mistaken or thought of as being a trans man based on these really strange stereotypical things that some people people think they can use to tell who is a trans man and who is not a trans man. Which really proves that it just doesn't work to come up with some like random examples, some things you've heard on the internet, probably other LGBT drop the T Reddit threads, and just think that they count for a whole group of people and that it will not count for another group of people. There's such a big mix of variation among the population between people that you're gonna end up excluding a bunch of people that you wouldn't want to, and then including a bunch of people that you wouldn't want to. So it's best to just be like, hey, don't want to date a trans person, you're not trans, are you? So yeah, those tips are just hilarious, and will probably include a lot of cis men and not include a lot of trans men, as it's basically just saying avoid shorter, more feminine looking men with patchy facial hair and curly head hair. Oh, and tattoos on their arms. But yeah, that's it. That's my reaction to that one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, my reaction, not what I was reacting to. If there's anything else you'd like to see me react to, then leave it down in the comments below. That's how I found out about this, so I always appreciate your recommendations. If you like this video, think about giving it a thumbs up and subscribing, but no pressure. And yeah, as always, guys, I will see you next time. Much love. Bye!